Hey guys, welcome to Hardcore. Today's topic is, tell me if you can tell what it is from these clues. Bitch better have my, I want it, I got it. I want it, I got it. And money, money, money. Did you get it? Did you get it? Nico, did you get it?
I got it.
So what is it?
Money. We're going to talk about how human design can help you attain abundance, or where you should look to understand where you can become more abundant in your life.
Amazing. So there are multi different levels to this. We are going to stick to the top 3, like highest levels, if you will, to like look at your chart with today. But you can go so much deeper into this money discussion within your design. So, of course, Miko created a beautiful PowerPoint. So we're gonna go deep into this today, as deep as the 3 layers will allow us to go. Let's begin. Let's dive in. Let's dive and begin.
So, we're going to start with type. There is going to be a certain way that you approach abundance or approach financial freedom, maybe. The first thing that I would actually say regarding money is that you need to change your approach to it. You need to understand that money is an energy and it is something that can help you achieve things. It's not something that is bad. A lot of people have a bad connotation to it. So this is the first thing that needs to change if you want to attract money. You need to welcome it and accept it and want it. And it's not that you have to become driven by money, but there needs to be some kind of equilibrium. So a friend of mine once told me that when I first started giving human design readings or yoga sessions, every time you start something new, you feel like you're not ready. You're never ever going to feel like you're ready to do what it is you've been training to do or learning to do or studying to do. So you're going to have to jump into the cold water. And at the beginning, you may have a temptation to offer your services for free. But she said to me, don't ever do that, even if it's just a minimal amount, but don't undersell yourself. It is an exchange of energy that is taking place there. And your services are worth something. You are worth something. And if you start seeing money as an exchange and an energy form, it is going to feel better. Of course, there are also people out there in India, for example, that are healers, and they will never take any kind of financial return from you. They will offer their healing services, and those are in India considered to be the real healers, the ones that don't take any money. So as you can see, there is already a very controversial and different types of looking at the subject in the first place. But I believe you need to change the attitude towards it in order to attract it. And we're going to start discussing how the different types are able to attract it or attain money. So would you like to get us started?
Yeah, let's start with manifestors. So about 9% of the population are manifestors. We've said that a million times here, but just that you have all of the information in one spot. Manifestors are here to kind of create the wealth and build that financial success for themselves. The innate energy of a manifestor is here to initiate when something feels right for them, right? So with following one strategy and authority as a manifestor, let's just stick with strategy right now, informing before acting, that's going to be really important before you're making financial decisions as a manifestor as well. It's going to reduce resistance to not only you, but those around you. And it's also going to help build that team around you if you're not just making this financial decision on your own, but to help build support for this to happen. And when you're putting it out there in the world, when you're speaking it to existence as a manifestor, you're taking the steps to create it and to bring it into existence. So some common blocks for us manifestors out there can be doubt. Is this the right decision? Should I be taking this leap? Things of that nature. Fear of judgment, that can be a really big thing, especially with an undefined G center in a manifestor. I mean, really with anyone, but particularly if you have an undefined G. And anger. So if you're in your not self, there may be a bit more resistance when making some of these financial steps for yourself. So the goal here is do the deconditioning work and to not be in anger, to really not give a shit if someone else is going to judge you. If this is feeling good to you, if you've followed your strategy and authority and you are ready to initiate and inform others before you're doing all of this, it's probably the right move for you as a manifester. So your pathway to prosperity is going to be following those creative urges. So for me as an ego manifester, following that heart pull, but it could be following that emotional wave, following that splenic hit, really listening to what your body is telling you, then informing other people if they need to be involved in this decision making. So think about the stakeholders. Is it your spouse? Is it your kids? Is it your parents? Is it your team at work, your business, whoever that is? And then please remember to honor those rest cycles. So it's not just going to be following these creative urges and going forever. It's not going to be sustainable as a manifester. What I've learned as a manifester is having a team, having others who can keep the ball rolling when I need to rest is super important, because you are going to be able to continue to build this wealth, to be able to continue to invest, whether that be in yourself or in something that you truly believe in. To be able to continue to do that, you need to be able to be in your full power. And the way you can feel into your body is to be rested. So it's this delicate balance of leaning into that urge. And I can tell you a creative urge can last for days or weeks. It's as long as your body will sustain you, but you really need that rest time. And it's going to depend on how long that is based off of how long you went and how much of whatever that endeavor was pulled from you. The initiation piece is really important. The informing piece is really important, but also resting is super important.
Yeah, and I feel like manifestors, they really want to have an impact in the world. They want to make a difference, make a change, and as Celestina said, really follow your strategy and then inform to make the right decisions. So the generators are known to have consistent life force energy, and they are often known to be the worker bees. And that is not necessarily something bad, but I wouldn't say, I don't really like when it is used in that way, because there's more to them. And the important thing for me is that they really have to follow their satisfaction. So follow that sacral response, of course. Use your inner authority. Again, very, very important with everything we're going to be talking about, as always. But if your sacral is giving you a hell yes, this is the direction that you should be following regarding financial abundance, financial investments. So it really has to be a hell yes. If you are an emotional generator, wait for your emotional wave, sit with it, feel into it. Does it still feel good after you've slept over it? Don't make spontaneous decisions if you're an emotional generator. So common blocks that are happening with generators is that they believe that they need to hustle to be abundant. And that often creates frustrations, and that blocks their natural magnetism. So just be very mindful if you have the pressure inside of you which tells you I have to do this because XYZ. That is often not going to lead you to satisfaction. If you follow something that really lights you up, that makes you feel joyful and satisfied, then that is the direction to go, and that is how you're going to attract more wealth than in another way.
Manifesting generators. I feel like MGs usually get squished between manifestors and generators, and I'm like, okay, cool, go out there and figure it out. But in this instance, that is so not the case. As a manifesting generator, you are here to be multi passionate in this world. And I guess, contrarily to generators, you kind of are here to hustle, but in a way where you have multiple streams of income that you're actively working with different financial approaches potentially to each of them. So you want to keep your hand in all the different pots at the same time. And in this instance, you're kind of designed to take steps with efficiency, to skip steps, and to be able to create wealth through these diverse interests that you have. The other really cool thing with manifesting generators is that you have this ability to be able to pivot between different ideas, different concepts, different exciting endeavors probably throughout the day, honestly, if not throughout the week. So you can really pop around, and though it may seem externally that you have like scattered energy, you really are doing the right thing by having a multi-passionate approach to a couple of different things. You can become impatient because it may not be this linear process of getting where you're going. There may be plateaus, and there probably will be plateaus where you see success and then it kind of trails off, success and then kind of trails off. But long term success for a manifesting generator is going to be through embracing that multifaceted nature, allowing this non-linear wealth building or monetary building to happen over time. It's not going to be an overnight success, but the more you keep your options open with the various streams of income, those various hustles that you have going on, the better it's going to be for you. And also, your interest is going to be able to continue to be piqued. It's not just going to be burnout.
Projectors. So now we're talking about a type, as you know, if you've been watching us for a while, that is here to guide others. And that may seem very frustrating for projectors out there. But don't worry, it doesn't mean that you're guiding others into wealth. Yes, you can do that. But it also can just mean that you need a team around you that you can guide. And with this team, you can make a lot of money. It also is not necessary that it is a team, but that through your guidance, you're going to make money as well. So you could be a coach, you could be a healer, you could be someone that is guiding others into abundance of health and financial means or any kind of direction, but you're guiding others, and through that you're being recognized in what you offer. So the recognition for projectors is extremely important, that you're being recognized for what you bring and that you feel successful doing that. So the more successful you feel, the more you will attract success. It is really a very intricate and interesting dynamic, in my opinion. Honestly, what we have to do as projectors is take care of yourself. Really focus on self-care, self-love, self-growth. Fill your own cup and you will attract the right invitations. This, to me, is the key. So if you're not taking care of your inner world, people are not going to recognize what you can bring, what you can give, what you can offer. So the common challenges of a projector is that they try to be generators. They are burning themselves out because they are trying to do way more than they are capable of doing because they don't have the consistent life force energy. You may be a projector that has all three other centers defined, energy centers, I mean. And that can provide you with a lot of energy, a lot of energy. My mom has a projector friend like that, and she feels like a generator sometimes. Root, emotional, and heart defined, and I'm like, oh my God, that's a lot of energy. So yeah, just bear that in mind. You're not here to hustle, and even generators are not here to hustle for the wrong thing. So just bear that in mind, that your energy is more limited, but you have it. If you are an energy projector, that means you have one or more energy centers defined. You definitely have consistent energy. You just need to figure out what type of energy you can pull from. And if you're not an energy projector, then you can still have energy, but it's not as consistent. You're borrowing from others here and there, or the planets are defining you and giving you energy. So yeah, prosperity for you comes from focusing on your natural gifts, focusing on your self-care and self-love, waiting for the correct invitations, and recognizing your value as a strategic guide.
Tay Swift is a projector, if that gives you any perspective as to what projectors are capable of when saying yes to the correct invitations for them. And I don't know much about how she got started. I tried to listen to a podcast today and they were not helpful in the least bit. So I don't really know her, like her lore, her early lore, but obviously she waited for the correct invitations. I think she got screwed by like her initial producer, but like then waited for the correct invitations and obviously has crushed it. Don't let your type dissuade you from what your potential is.
Yeah, and additionally to that, now that you mentioned Taylor Swift, Kim Gould speaks of her in her asteroid book. And she looked at her chart and she has a hanging gate to her split definition. And when you add one asteroid, well, she has plenty of asteroids in there, but Kim Gould was looking at which asteroids are defining it and where are these asteroids placed within. So maybe it's the ascendant. I think it's in the ascendant for in her case, but I'm not entirely sure. So when you're taking that into consideration, she becomes a manifestor. And this is how she got started. She was a very, very manifestor like projector. She was acting a lot like a manifestor, initiating things. So that's why I also love to include asteroids, because some people don't resonate with their human design type. They don't understand how it's supposed to be working. And sometimes there are instances where using a different type of approach could work, but your chart really, with the asteroids, they have to be placed in a very, very prominent position. It is not just a side thing that it's not any asteroid within a hanging gate or channel that a hanging gate that would then create the channel that this would work for you. But when Kim Gould was looking at Taylor Swift's chart, she was noticing that, and apparently this is how she got started, that she really initiated and went up to someone to have her first single produced or her first album, something along those lines.
There you go. Yeah, don't be boxed in by any of this. It should feel like you have more options when you understand your design rather than boxing you in. So, last but not least, the reflectors. So, it's really interesting because I worked with a reflector for over a year, and it's really cool to be able to see the reflector and then also when we're discussing this, think about those nuances that I saw. So if you have a reflector in your life, think about them when you're thinking about this. If you know one and have one. Anyway, reflectors, as the name suggests, are the mirror to their environment as well as the wealth that can come from their environment. The key for any reflector is to be patient and wait that full 28-day lunar cycle before making any financial decisions. They're also going to be extremely sensitive to the collective money consciousness, as well as they'll also be thriving in prosperous environments. The physical environment that they're in or the people that they're around, that is going to determine, unfortunately, potentially, like what their potential is. So if you, as a reflector, can put yourself in an environment where you feel seen, you feel heard, there's surprise, there's delight, and you're surrounded by others who are in that same mindset, that's going to be really helpful for you to kind of get to those next steps. However, the main challenge is going to be disappointment when in those wrong financial environments. But with success can come from reflectors when they are truly thinking about and truly leaning into that lunar cycle and choosing those environments that are more abundant for their financial timing and for their financial guidance. So, I guess quick example, the chef of the restaurant, like the head chef of the restaurant that I used to manage was slash is looking to open up a restaurant here in Australia. He has two in Italy already, but wants to open one up here. And he told me this in like December, but it's the end of June and he's been sitting on it for a hot minute. He found property 2 months ago. But again, he's been sitting on it. So he's really like his environment at work is not a healthy one, but his environment for his financial decision making is definitely more of a healthy one. And I know he has financial advisors for that. So in this instance, right, like surrounding yourself with people who can help you make these really positive decisions, in addition to waiting out that full 28 days, is going to be really important for healthy decisions as a reflector.
Now we're going to start talking about the centers. So there are several different centers that are going to help you understand, if you have them defined or undefined, how to make money. The undefined centers in your chart is actually often where you have money potential, but in a very different way than you may think. So what happens with undefined centers is that you attract people and clients and businesses that have these centers defined. So where you are undefined, that's often what you attract into your life, because this is what you're supposed to learn about. And this is, especially if it's a completely open center, this is a huge learning curve that you have. With undefined centers as well, I attract a lot of clients where I'm undefined. I also attract clients where I'm defined or the same type as me. But there are centers that are often undefined, and this is, or that are undefined in my chart and defined in the other person's chart. And this is often where they are struggling. So from a marketing perspective, lean into your undefined centers. Figure out what those mean to you. So what we're going to take a look at first, we're going to take a look at the head center. Let me make that color red. The head center here as well. Defined versus undefined. So the defined head center is about having inspirations from within. So if you have it undefined, on the other hand, you're going out there and you're getting inspired by the world around you. What can happen with the undefined center is that you take on the worries from others and you get distracted. With the defined center, what can happen when it's unhealthy is that you feel overwhelmed because you have so many thoughts in your head. That can also happen with an undefined center, the overwhelming thoughts of other people around you. With a defined center, when it's unhealthy, you have thoughts of often doubt. It depends which channel is going to be defined in your head center from the Ajna. But when you turn it into a money-making strategy or a marketing strategy, it is more about being able to support others, especially if your head center is undefined. Okay, we're going to focus on the undefined areas. If yours is undefined, figure out how you can guide others in creative elements, but also in inspiration elements. So it doesn't have to just be art, but there are many, many, many ways of how you can use this inspiration that is coming to you, and you can inspire others to create different kinds of things. So you have the ability with an undefined head center, and especially if your Ajna is also undefined, to have an open mind. Use this to your, what is it called? Use this to your advantage. So the next center we're going to be talking about is the Ajna. The Ajna is about structuring things, organizing things. And it's really, as defined Ajna, you love to organize and structure things, and you also often do it the same way over and over again. So there's no real different way of how you approach things. The structure, usually if you're approaching one subject in some way, then you will structure it like this over and over again, the way that you approach it. With a unhealthy Ajna, however, you are overloading on trying to structure things. You're taking on way too much, and you keep trying to structure everything and everyone, maybe sometimes even. With an undefined Ajna, however, you have many different perspectives onto a subject, and when you're approaching a subject, you're going to do it in a different way every time. Maybe not every time, but a lot of times. So there's not usually a strategy of how you approach a subject. What can happen with an undefined Ajna is that you feel anxious or uncertain, and you sometimes even distrust your own capability of remembering things. So undefined Ajnas have an undefined head as well. And that means that you need to be asked to share your insights. That would help. It's also dependent on the variables, but just for an undefined Ajna and head, there is so much wisdom inside of you because you're taking in the information from others. You have this library inside of you, but you don't have the access card yourself. Everyone around you has this access card, but not you yourself. So for you, teaching job could be very interesting, but it is more about sharing your diverse knowledge. So you're going to have a very different perspective, very open mind regarding different kinds of subjects. And that is going to be what is interesting to people when you teach about things, because your mind changes. And that is good, because the more information you get, the more you understand something. And then your idea of subjects in the world can change. The throat center is the next center we're going to look at. It's this one. I mean, if you've been watching us for a while, you probably know the centers and where they're located, but just in case. So the throat center is about communication and manifestation. So that's why manifestors and manifesting generators are often known as the individuals that have an easier time making money or creating things, because they have the defined throat center and it is connected to a motor. And this gives them the power to manifest things. And it doesn't mean that if you're another type, you can't manifest things, but there are other ways of you doing it. It can't just come out of nowhere, out of nothing. Even for the manifesting generator, they need to respond to their sacral. But manifestors can theoretically do it out of nothing, but they also need to wait for the right moment, right thing to manifest with. So with an undefined throat, what can happen is that when it's healthy, you're amplifying the ideas of others. So you're taking in information from others, you're able to speak in their voice and in their words, which is super helpful in certain situations, for example, as a coach, or as well as a public speaker. And with an undefined throat, however, make sure that you're doing it more spontaneously, because you're really good at spontaneous speaking a lot of times, not always. It depends on the rest of your chart, of course. With a defined throat, you often need more structure and more of an idea as to what it is you're going to say. Celestina is a bit different in this. She is able to wing it more easily than me, and we both have defined throats. So this is just, that's why we're always mentioning the rest of your chart always matters as well. When you feel like something doesn't resonate, have someone look at it, because there can be things that are interacting with the information that have a hierarchy than what we're sharing here. So with an undefined throat, you may feel unheard sometimes, and then you try to speak more, or you retrieve and you don't speak at all. Those are the things that can happen with an undefined throat. And with a defined throat, you may have very impulsive actions for attention. So both of them can go into the oversharing aspect. But if you have an undefined throat, public speaking and teaching by channeling. So that's what I was saying regarding being more spontaneous in how you speak. Especially if you have an undefined head, undefined Ajna, and undefined throat, you have the ability to channel things, because it's so open on the top 3 centers that you could really have the potential to channel. With the G center, this is really about, well, love and direction. And if you have the G center that is undefined or open, make sure you're in the right environment, for sure. Make sure you're surrounding yourself with the right people. If you can, make sure that you're spending time with people that are already abundant. And when I talk about abundance, it doesn't have to just be money, but it can be whichever abundance you need and want in your life. Make sure that you try to engage with individuals, spend time in environments that feel abundant to you. If you have an undefined G center and you're unhealthy, then it can happen that you seek external identity. You're trying to be someone that you're not. You're trying to hold on to an identity that you're not, because you're a chameleon. You're here to change and shift, and that's your unique way of expressing yourself. With a defined G center, you have, depending on which gates are defined, but you have more of a sense of direction for yourself, more of a sense of identity for yourself, and step into that. Step into how you feel you want to identify. and express that. So, as a marketing strategy for an undefined G center, really figure out which environment fits with you and focus on that. Take in that environment, market yourself in the right environment, and you will probably attract clients who feel very safe and secure in who they are, are defined in their G center. Most likely, you're going to attract people not that are interested in understanding, okay, what is my identity? Although you would be very good at guiding these individuals because you are able to take them in and you're able to reflect back to them who they are. So if they are individuals who feel lost and confused, this could be a great target audience for you because you are able to literally feel who they are.
Alrighty, with the ego and or heart center or will center, so many names for it. If you have a defined ego center that is healthy, you'll find it maybe not easy, but you'll find that you keep commitments and you do so in a way that is sustainable for yourself rather than burnout. If you have an unhealthy defined ego, there's probably going to be a lot more edging towards the overworked burnout side of things, but doing more to validate your self-worth rather than necessarily doing it for others. There's going to be a bit more of an ego-driven promise. And there's a fine line between like ego and positive and ego is negative. Think of the ego as positive as keeping commitments because you're caring for the other person versus ego is negative, doing so to make yourself look good. There's kind of that dichotomy there. An undefined ego is going to work without pressure to prove, and they're going to work with these intrinsic self-worth values that they have. Rather than shoulding on themselves in this instance, it's going to be more of an ebb and flow that they got nothing to prove. They're going to do what they're going to do, you know? Whereas the unhealthy, undefined ego is going to seek that external validation. They're going to be like, wait, but I did this. Are you going to come at me? Like, just put me on this pedestal kind of thing. They're going to feel undervalued though, and they're going to undervalue that time and that energy because they're always seeking that validation. To prosper from this as an undefined ego, you're leaning into guiding other people's willpower, leaning into that monetary, that material wealth that comes with a defined ego, but doing so without burnout because the heart can only go so far. So it really is helping others find that balance and find that dichotomy. On to the sacral center. So a defined sacral has the sustainable go, go, go energy for fulfilling work. And again, if that sacral is lit up and it feels like a hell yeah, then that is what is for it. However, if you have a defined sacral that is unhealthy, you're probably ignoring your body's signals and you're going, potentially doing things that you dislike. And that is going to be just a whole nother can of worms, but that's not healthy for the long term. Hence the unhealthy expression of the sacral. All right, to the undefined sacral, the healthy expression of this, someone is going to honor their cycles. They're not always going to have this unlimited energy, and they're going to choose work that resonates with them rather than the go, 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 the hustle culture. Because if you don't have that sustainable energy, if you don't have that continued life force energy, you're not going to have that go, go, go ability. On the other side of that, if you have an undefined sacral that is unhealthy, it's going to feel like chronic frustration because you're trying to force things that aren't coming, that aren't there. And that's going to be a misaligned opportunity for you, right? If you keep pushing for the thing that you think you want, but have you listened to your body for? Probably not. It's going to just lead into a wall every time. For the undefined sacral, you really have to find that true excitement and truly listening to what your body wants and choosing the work that resonates with you. That's where it's going to come from. So, as an undefined sacral, it's going to be key to help guide the defined sacrals to find that excitement and lean into what is truly lighting them up. Onto the solar plexus. The healthy, defined solar plexus is going to wait out that emotional wave for clarity. Whether it takes an hour, a day, a week, a month, you're going to wait it out. Whereas an unhealthy, defined solar plexus is going to decide at emotional highs or emotional lows rather than waiting it out. If you do not have your solar plexus defined, a healthy expression of this would be observing patterns that you feel that maybe come from external sources like the transits or people around you or various environments that you're in, but also kind of detaching from the emotional charge of those around you. So, an example of this would be if you are an emotionally undefined being and you happen to have a lot of emotionally defined people in your family or in your workplace, don't make a decision around them in that moment, right? Reground, maybe go outside for a walk, and then make that decision after you've had time to get away and out of their emotional charges. I've noticed that with my parents. I love you guys, but damn, it can be a lot when you're in that moment and feeling that, or potentially magnifying that for those around you, and then absorbing that yourself. If you're in an unhealthy expression of this with an undefined solar plexus, rather than detaching from those emotions, you're going to be absorbing those emotions. And that's going to set an unclear boundary. You're not going to understand if those are your emotions and you're feeling a certain way about something, especially if it's a big financial decision, probably not a good thing, versus if it's your environment or the people that you're around putting that on you, figuring out what that means for you. One with an undefined solar plexus can help someone with a defined solar plexus embrace and understand their emotional intelligence. There are emotional people out there, there are people with a defined emotional solar plexus out there who don't really know that they're an emotional being. And it can be helpful to kind of explore this and understand that you need to kind of wait it out versus making decisions when you're at the height of your emotions. So it can be helpful in that reflection process.
Okay, guys, so I'm going to take over because it's late for Celestina and she's about to fall asleep on us. So we're going to split this episode into two. And we're going to finish up with the spleen and the root because money in human design has many different aspects. We're also going to look at the gates, we're also going to look at the lines, and we also want to mention the gene keys because it is a great way to decondition yourself from money blocks, apart from doing manifestation techniques as well. But we do really want to mention the gene keys as well, and that will just take a bit longer. So we are going to divide this episode. Now jumping to the spleen. So the spleen is really about intuition. It is about survival, and it also is about certain fears. But if you have a defined spleen and you don't have anything else that is defined when you look at the chart on the right side of the chart. So not the sacral defined, not the emotional solar plexus defined, then especially the emotional solar plexus, if your sacral is defined, then you will still have a very, very quick sacral response. But if it's not defined and the emotional solar plexus is not defined, then you will have a very quick intuition. So the spleen is very, very gentle, very soft, very quiet, but very, very quick. So you better listen to it because it won't repeat itself. And that also goes for financial decisions. However, with splenic individuals, what I often see is that they're extremely conditioned because they have been taught to not make spontaneous decisions like that. They have been taught not to listen to their impulses because a splenic individual, as an example, when they are standing in front of a restaurant or when they're invited out to a restaurant and then they say, yes, let's do it. And then they go to the restaurant, they're standing in front of it and they're like, yeah, I'm not entering there. I don't feel good. It doesn't feel safe. It doesn't, like, I'm going to get food poison there. That's the spleen talking. But then the mind comes in and it's like, hey, yeah, but we just agreed to it and we can't disappoint everyone that we're with and let's just do it. And then they end up at home probably with food poisoning. But it's just that the spleen is very intuitive and very quick. So make your financial decisions if you are aligned. That's a very big thing because you may have been ignoring your spleen for decades. And if you're then going to decide, okay, I'm going to make split-second decisions from now on, train first, okay, before you're going to spend millions or hundreds or thousands or I don't know how much on certain quick second spontaneous financial decisions. So the undefined spleen, on the other hand, can gain a lot of wisdom from understanding what the fears are about, understanding what health and safety and security is about. So lean into that. And when we're talking again about the marketing strategies, you're probably going to attract more defined spleens. So try to help them and support them in connecting back with their intuition, connecting back with understanding how to listen to their spleen more. It can also be health related. So your direction that you're going in may be health related because the spleen is very, very connected to the immune system. So look at what resonates with you regarding marketing or what you would want to focus on. But most likely you're going to be attracting defined spleens. As a defined root, you have this inner pressure. And I feel this so much with a lot of defined root people, especially if they're imbalanced, if they haven't attained their inner balance. These defined roots can feel so pressureful. And it also depends how they are connected. So if they're emotionally pressured, or if they're sacrally pressured, if they're spleenically pressured, or it depends how they're connected. But with a defined root, you're making this pressure come from within. And it may feel like your financial decisions are also connected to this inner pressure. So you feel insecure because your bank account is running low. And this can also happen very, very easily with an undefined root. But there the pressure comes from outside. So a lot of times with an undefined root, people will then point it out to you. They will be like, how are you going to make money? And what are you going to do? And all of this pressure from the outside. Whereas the defined root is going to create this pressure from within. And just bear that in mind, be mindful of that. But this gift, if you have an undefined root and if you're leaning into learning more about it, you would be very good at project management, for example, and stabilizing the pressure that you're feeling around you and guiding this pressure in the right way. So yeah, these were all the centers and how you may be able to make money out of it. Stay tuned for the next part where we are going to cover the money line, for example, that everyone talks about in human design. We're going to look at line 3 as well, which has a lot to do with how and where you can make money in your chart. And as we said, we're going to take a look at gene keys, especially the Pearl sequence. But if you are into gene keys, you will also know that there are 2 things you will have to do before you can even attempt to work at the Pearl sequence. It was a pleasure being here with you again, Celestina, as always.
Right back at you, dude.
Thank you everyone for listening to us. We hope you enjoyed it. Leave us some feedback in the comments below because Celestina went through our statistics. And we need to figure something out. Because if you're still here listening, fantastic. You're one of the few. Yeah, we would love to know how to keep you guys engaged.
Bloopers are the best. Maybe people just skip to the end and go see bloopers.
I would. I do. Maybe I'm pulling our statistics down.
All right, guys. Until next week.
Bye,
Ciao.
everyone.